Thank you, Dr. Vedha, for a wonderful introduction. Good afternoon, students. Maybe I need more energy to really take your attention for the session. I know post-lunch, very difficult to concentrate, right? Fine, I'm not going to explain much about the principles of the instrumentation that we routinely use for the catheterization or for the purification. So having known that the importance of the nutraceuticals, I'm going to discuss about the extraction and the chemical profiling of these nutraceuticals. From the morning we've been hearing and learning a lot of information about the nutraceuticals. So as you know, nutraceuticals, that is a combination of the nutritive elements as well as the pharmaceutical remedy. So as the speakers mentioned in the morning, they don't have a specific target to treat a disease, but then they are performing these functions by overall taking care of your physiological process in the body. To name few, we have these nutraceuticals which could be extracted from the plants, from the fruits, from the spices, from the vegetables, medicinal plants. Probiotics could be used, or even from the nuts, and also very recently, I think in the morning session, you heard about these marine organisms to be used as a source of the nutraceuticals. So we are going to discuss about the different instrumentation that we are going to use for the extraction. So before I discuss about the instrumentation, let me brief you about few of the nutraceuticals which are routinely used. As you know about these alpha-linoleic acid, which is derived from the flax leaf. So these are having biological applications as the anti-cancerous property, anti-inflammatory property, or even the neurological functioning of the brain. Going on, we have many such nutraceuticals like carotene, then piperine, then the zingerine, and also the curcumin. All these which are having a lot of medicinal property. It could be immunomodulation, that is boosting up our immune system, or it could be anti-cancerous, anti-inflammatory, or to treat your gastrointestinal ailments or the renal ailments. Many of these nutraceuticals even enhance the absorption of the nutrients. So n number of applications are there for the nutraceuticals, and the COVID era as well as the post-COVID era, we know the significance of using these nutraceuticals to improve our health system. And that's how you can see the graph over here. There is a huge, inflation of these nutraceutical uses in the market, and that's how it is expected that it can reach up to $454.6 billion by 2023. So that is, there is a huge market for these nutraceuticals, and anybody can be an entrepreneur, or anyone can set up a very basic and very essential equipment to really purify and even can supply the crude components as nutraceuticals. It can be as dietary supplements, it can be as functional foods, or maybe the beverages. So these nutraceuticals can be used and it can be extracted and can be supplied. Further with the formulation, it can be released as drugs or components. So here is a flowchart which explains the general approaches for the extraction, purification, and characterization of the nutraceuticals. First is the purification that we can do in our regular laboratories. Very simple equipments are required here, like it could be TLC. Many of our students have done TLC in a routine regular laboratories, thin layer chromatography. Apart from that, of course, thin layer chromatography is an example for a planar chromatography, which can hold only a small, a minute amount of the sample. Parallelly, you can also use the common chromatography, where we use a column to purify our nutraceutical or maybe a phytochemical. And then further we can use HPLC, which is a very robust, rapid, and a very efficient method for the purification of the phytochemicals. Once you get your pure component or pure compound, it can be further subjected for the structural elucidation. It is very important for us to know the structural elucidation. If at all, it has to be formulated as a drug. Otherwise, you also can go for the biochemical characterization, where if you are not seeing for the characterization, like you are seeing for biochemical application, what are diseases or what are health ailments we can apply these nutraceuticals. Once you are done with your biochemical characterization, you can see for the toxicity profile. Many times these nutraceuticals are the phytochemicals. In purity, they may not work to the 100% efficiency. Or sometimes during the extraction process itself, lot of solvent residues appear which can be toxic for the experimental animals in a clinical trial, or it could be toxic for the human consumption. So definitely, if it has to be approved by FDA, means it has to clear the toxicity. Here, means it has to prove that it is not toxic for the animal or for the human consumption. So that study has to be done. Then comes the in vivo characterization or the in vivo evaluation, where we use different animal models. Toxicity study definitely we do with in vitro, like in a test tube we can study the toxicity profiles, seeing the different components, and further we can extrapolate the results for the cell culture, and then only we can see for the in vivo, that is inside the body. Definitely, first it has to be proven in animals, and then we go for the human beings, that is the clinical trial phase 4. So then you have to prove for the clinical efficacy whether this particular phytocomponent and the nutraceutical is really giving its biological application. So here is the flow chart which gives a precise information about the different approaches for the nutraceutical applications. First and foremost, very important step is the extraction. Since these nutraceuticals are bound to the cell components, we need to extract, we need to remove these nutraceuticals from the bound components. It is the first step and of course a very crucial step for the extraction. And this extraction process includes pre-washing, whatever I'm talking about mainly on the plant sources. So the plant sources that you have chosen for the extraction process has to be cleaned of the mud or any dirt or other things. So after that, you need to thoroughly dry the sample, but many times even you can use the fresh samples as well. The drying process can be different types. So it can be normal sun drying, shade drying, or even it can be a vacuum drying, a freeze drying. Different methods are there. We need to, with this drying process, we have to keep our nutraceutical in its utmost biological activity. Then comes the grinding process, so that we can have the fine powder of the plant component or any of the source as such that you have chosen for the nutraceutical. Then comes the homogenization process, using a suitable solvent system to make a homogeneous mixture of the sample. First thing, when you are going for the grinding, maceration, or maybe the homogenization, we need to choose an appropriate solvent system. Solvent systems, as we know, there are two types, basically polar as well as non-polar. So depending upon the nature of the nutraceutical, we need to choose the specific solvent system for the extraction process. Suppose you are using an aqueous medium and your nutraceutical is not soluble, then definitely you will not get a maximum yield of the nutraceutical. So it is very much required to choose the appropriate solvent system. So if the nutraceutical is polar in nature, that is soluble in polar solvents like methanol, ethanol, or acetonitrile, or dichloromethane, or maybe water. So in that case, you need to use any of these solvent systems. alternatively, if the sample or your nutraceutical is non-polar in nature, that it is not soluble in water, so definitely we go for a homogeneous sample type or in the solvent type like dichloroethane or maybe chloroform or hexane, etc. And sometimes we can have a mixture of the polar as well as the non-polar solvents. But then you need to make sure that the solvent that you are using is a better grade of the nutraceutical. As I mentioned, apart from the routine techniques that we use for the extraction of the nutraceuticals and the phytocomponents, we can use a sonicator so that the cell can be disrupted. The cell can be, freed of its components and it can release its cellular components into the surrounding media. You can use a reflex condenser so that repeatedly you can use the same solvent for the efficient extraction of the sample component, or you could use even the soft set apparatus. Of course, these are very routinely used the techniques for the extraction. Alternatively, the macerations could be done using the fresh sample or the dry sample, or you can use a mixture of water or the organic layers. But what I discussed so far, which is routinely used in a smaller setups or academic laboratories. But if at all we are in an industry where there is a bulk extraction of the nutraceuticals, and then definitely we cannot, with these traditional methods of the extraction, we cannot handle a much more volumes of the sample. So in that case, these are the few methods for the extraction, like it could be the supercritical fluid extraction, which is quite followed in the industry. When we see that the nutraceuticals having mixed up with the solvents, and even when the nutraceutical is purified, it has the solvent residues, which can really impair its biological activity. So in such cases, we use, the industries, they use the supercritical fluids. So where, like example, they could use the liquefied carbon dioxide. So this, once the extraction is done, this carbon dioxide could be evaporated without having the trace of these solvents. Many times you would have seen that soil seeds, the oil seeds, the oil would be extracted using the hexane and with chloroform, but the oil would be contaminated with such kind of solvent residues. So and then it may not be having approval from the or maybe approval from the FDA. So in that cases, nowadays the industries, they use these supercritical fluids for the extraction. Then pressurize, applying the high pressure, you can disrupt the cell wall and you can release its cellular components. Microwave assisted extraction is also possible, but it handles a very less volume of the sample. Solid phase extraction, where it is a kind of sieving method, like nutraceuticals, once maceration is done, it can be extracted. Surfactant mediated, like many surfactants, the detergents are also used to disrupt the cell wall and the cell membrane and to release this nutraceuticals. There are advantages of using such methods, which are used in the industries, like there is a great reduction in the volume of the solvent that we use. Then there is less chance for the sample to get degraded, and then elimination of the additional purification steps and the other cleaning up steps. And the sample that we get would be highly concentrated, and it proves an efficient extraction methodology. Coming to the first and a very simple and a very quick, inexpensive method that can be routinely applied in a academic laboratory, like in our laboratory, that is thin layer chromatography, that is PLC. So this is used whether it is a large volume of the sample or a small volume of sample. First, we need to standardize the solvent system. So in order to standardize the solvent system, any of the preliminary extraction methods followed, and then the solvent system that we can use for the bulk amount of the sample could be subjected using the thin layer chromatography. So using a small piece of the thin layer chromatogram, you can standardize the solvent system. So a different mixture or a binary mixture and the homogeneous with the samples. Maybe the homogeneous solvent system you can use. Having 1 to 2 ml of the solvent system, you can have a better purification methodology. So before even we go for GLC, before we go for HPLC or any such industrially applicable techniques, first and foremost they go for the TLC just to know the property of the nutraceutical or the phytochemical. And here, the separation of the phytochemical is largely based on its solubility, whether it is polar or non-polar. Because any types of the chromatographic system basically has two phases. One is the stationary phase, the other one is the mobile phase. Stationary phase is one which is not moving, which is not mobile. So different types of materials could be used as a stationary phase. And similarly, different types of the mobile phase, there could be mixtures of the solvents used as a mobile phase. So based on the nature of the sample, if it is a polar sample, it gets interacted more with the polar phase, either the stationary phase or the mobile phase. If it is having more affinity for the stationary phase, it gets retarded in its movement, it stops its movement. And it has more affinity for the mobile phase, it gets carried away with the mobile phase and it travels a little along the distance. And we calculate the separation, the process of separation usually we judge based on the RF value or the retardation factor value. So these retardation factor values can be compared with the standards and we can identify the sample of our interest. You could say different specific reagents to trace the separated phytocomponent. You can observe such TLC plates in an ultraviolet light, and on the right side you can see the picture where how these phytochemicals are fluorescing under ultraviolet region. So depending on the nature, different phytochemicals emit different colors of the radiation. So this is a non-destructive method where if you observe under UV and if it is a preparative TLC, you know that I think many of the students would have done TLC since it is a very basic technique which is followed in a laboratory, and it can be both preparative as well as analytical. Preparative, if at all you are trying to purify the sample, we have the thickness of this matrix ranging from 1.5 to 2 millimeter. So that once the sample is separated, you can observe under the UV light and you can scrap off that particular region and you can use it as your pure sample for further biological application if no other sophisticated instruments are available. So this is how TLC is the preliminary step for the standardization of the solvent system and also for analyzing the different components present in the sample or the plant sample basically. If the TLC, if it is routinely used in a laboratory as I mentioned, but the thing is it can hold very small volume of the sample, and suppose you have samples in a much bulkier quantity, then alternatively you can go for column chromatography where the same matrix, like it could be the silica, it could be the alumina, or it could be the charcoal, different types of the matrix could be used in the form of a column. So inside the column, we pack such adsorbent media and then we can go for the purification. So when we are choosing the adsorbent media, there are three types. Definitely the separation, first two types are the polar, if the sample is polar in nature, that is miscible with the water or many polar solvents. Then we could use silica, which is polar acidic in nature. I think those who performed TLC would have heard frequently of these two terms, that is silica as well as alumina. Silica is basically having a phenol group, so it provides a kind of acidic characteristic property, and using which you can purify the basic components. Similarly, solar basic means alumina. Alumina is basic in nature, and it can be used for the purification of the acidic phytocomponents. Non-polar, suppose your sample is non-polar in nature, then you could use either the non-polar, suppose like the charcoal or the polystyrene bleach for the purification process. Alternatively, to alumina, fluorosilane also could be used. So these are all the supporting matrix which helps in the separation of the phytocomponents. So here is the pictorial representation of the column chromatography. So you can see that there is a mixture of X1Y of phytocomponent, and it's being loaded on a column, layered on the silica or the alumina, and the required solvent system is percolating under the influence of gravity, and depending upon the nature of the sample, it gets partition between the stationary phase and the mobile phase, and depending upon the nature, you could see that the X being retained within the column and the Y component gets eluted. That means it comes out of the column quickly. So if at all you are using silica, you know that silica is acidic in nature, right? If at all using silica, then the basic components would be retained within the column, and all the acidic components get quickly eluted of the column. So it is very important for you to know what is the nature of your phytochemical. Otherwise, you cannot decide on which type of matrix to use. So that's why usually we perform the thin-layer chromatography. There in small pieces we take and we standardize whether to take silica or the alumina sheets, whether to take which polar solvent or non-polar solvent. So on the right side also you can see a plant extract that is getting separated in a column chromatography. The different colored bands are seen before they get eluted of the column. See, there are many technical terms that I am using, hoping to know that you already have read many of these aspects. Okay, so moving on, here see are the column chromatography are much non-specific types of the separation techniques. Moving on to highly specific techniques, the first one that I am including is the ion exchange chromatography. If the sample is acidic, basic, or neutral, based on that we choose the type of ion exchange chromatography. Basically, there are two types of ion exchange chromatography, that is cation exchange chromatography as well as anion exchange chromatography. So this ion exchange chromatography, it is also an inexpensive and an effective method to clean up your sample. I mean, clean up means to remove all the impurities efficiently, right? Because all our effort is to purify the phytochemical or to get our nutraceutical to the utmost purity. This ion exchange chromatography, it has the ability to modify the stationary phase as well as the mobile phase. By changing the media of the dissolving samples, like suppose you are dissolving your sample in methanol or maybe methanol or maybe in water, then the sample retains its chemical property or it retains its surface charges. And suppose if you use the buffering media, by changing the pH of the water, all of you know what is a buffer component or what is a buffer system. They give an optimum or a specific range of the pH. So what Ritik I am going to explain is based on the pH. Right? So pH plays an important role over in the separation technique. So by changing the pH of the buffer that you are using to solubilize the sample, this technique could be explained and it could be involved. So there are two types as I mentioned, cation exchange chromatography as well as an anion exchange chromatography. In cation exchange chromatography, if you observe in the slide, basically cation exchanger, these are the resins which would be coated with the surface charges. So if you see the first one, that is cation exchanger, it has an overall negative charge. Okay, and this negatively charged resin is going to attract the positively charged sample species, and it is going to hold only the positively charged sample components in the column, and rest of the, if it is a negative charged species, it comes out of the column. Alternatively, anion exchangers are an exchange chromatography, wherein the resins that we use having positive charge, and this selectively binds the negatively charged phytocomponent or the nutraceutical, and the rest of the non-specific components get eluted of the column. So if you know the charge of the nutraceutical, you could choose which type of the chromatography to be used for the separation. Right? So otherwise, if your sample is neutral, you can induce the specific charge by using an appropriate buffer component. You can induce a positive charge or a negative charge by selecting a buffer of a specific pH. So here are the examples of the few resins and why these resins are used for specific type of the components. So first one is having a sulfonic acid group, which is used to purify the positively charged anthocyanins or the alkalides present in a plant. Similarly, the resin, if it is coated with a carboxylic acid, it has a negative charge and efficiently binds to the positively charged alkalides. Similarly, if the resin is attached with amines, which imparts a positive charge and can efficiently bind and separate the negatively charged sample components. So based on the nature of your nutraceutical, you could use either of these ion exchange resins, and you can purify your sample up to almost 80% to the purity. So here is to the slide, at the right side, you can see the apparatus. It's a very simple setup where we have a column which is loaded or which is packed with the resins. Either it could be positively charged resin or negatively charged resins, and you are loading your sample components there based on the nature of the sample and based on the nature of the resins. You can have the separation. So in the second column, you can see that the first column, there are these samples that's been loaded on the matrix. The second column, you can see that only positively charged species are coming out of the column. So that means all the negatively charged sample components are held within the column. So they are retained within the column. So this is an aim to only separate the positively charged components from the negatively charged components. So using which you can efficiently separate the charged species. Coming to the very sophisticated very rapid method, because TLC or the column chromatography or any such chromatography techniques takes hours of time. So here, this is one method called as high performance liquid chromatography, HPLC. Of course, many of my students have really undergone the training there, how to use this equipment. This is very versatile. The different types of samples could be used for the purification, and this is very robust. Very quickly you can get your sample purified, and it has a lot of application in industry. So basically in industries they use this HPLC, and SAMS for the purification as well as the characterization process. Resolving power. So when we talk about chromatography, we always say this term, that is resolving power. How pure is your sample and how pure your particular equipment can give you. That is the resolving power and resolving efficiency of a technique. So this resolving power of HPLC, it is suitable for the rapid processing of, if at all your sample is having multiple components. If multiple components are present, like in a particular plant, there are some 10 to 12 phytocomponents present, and you want to purify each of these components, then we can go for this HPLC. Within no time, you get your sample purified if it is a preparative one. Because in HPLC, I think you heard of that there are two types of HPLC. One is preparative HPLC, other one is analytical HPLC. In preparative HPLC, you can have your sample to the utmost purity, and in analytical HPLC, you can have your sample purified, yet you can also characterize. You get to know what is the structure, what is the particular component that is present in your sample. So here is the instrumentation of the HPLC. There is one reservoir which can hold the solvent system. Here the solvent system is a it is a liquid. So it is an example for a liquid chromatography. So HPLC, high performance liquid chromatography. Here the mobile phase is a liquid. So whatever the liquid being chosen, depending upon the nature of the solvent, so that sample, that solvent is stored in a reservoir. And from the reservoir, the mobile phase enters into the pumps. So using these pumps, you can set the flow rate, you can set the required pressure for the efficient separation. And from the pump, the mobile phase enters into the injector. So in the injector, you can inject your sample. So this is a place where you introduce your sample, which is of your interest for the purification process. So now as the samples enters into the injection port, it gets carried with the mobile phase, which is the liquid. So as the liquid moves from the injector port, it enters into the column. Suppose your sample is not pure. You suspect that my sample is not pure. In that case, you can use an additional column that is called as a guard column, because the columns that we use in HPLC are quite expensive. So if we use a crude sample, crude means which is not pure, but is not completely pure. So in that case, you can use an additional column called as a guard column, which removes all the impurities. And then from the guard column, the sample enters into the main column. So this main column, again, depending upon the nature of your sample, different types of columns comes with the stationary phase inside. Then once the sample gets separated based on the retardation factor. Again, it gets partitioned between the stationary phase and the mobile phase based on its nature, whether it is polar, whether it is non-polar, whether it is a large molecular weight, a smaller molecular weight. So based on all such parameters, the samples get separated. So once the samples get separated, it enters into the detector. So different types of detectors again are available for you to choose. Routinely, we choose a UV detector where there is no destruction of your sample. So there is no ionization. There are multiple, like, it could be FID detector. There is a flame ionization detector where your sample is ionized to know its characteristic property. If FID is used, then definitely you will not get your pure sample its biological property. So many times we routinely use the UV detector, which will not destroy your sample, and then we will have the device which can record all that information which is used in the instrument. And this is how HPLC looks like in an industrial application. And the migration or the movement of the sample, the rate of the migration entirely depends on the nature, how it is interacting with the stationary phase as well as the mobile phase. So you are mentioned that using the pump, you can set up the pressure, you can set up the rate of the flow of your mobile phase. So also you can use a gradient system, like there could be isoprotic system where if you are using two solvent systems, a kind of mixture of two solvents, you don't know the nature of your sample. So for a safer side, you use both polar as well as non-polar. So in that case, if you can have that mixture of solvent systems, you can use this solvent mixture continuously for the operation, or you can use different components. Like if you want 80% of water and 20% of your other non-polar solvent, so you could set up such even parameters as well. So using the pump, you can set up either an isoprotic system or you can use a gradient system where you can allow the pump to give the sample at different rates. Suppose I want my mobile phase to be run at 1 ml per minute or 5 ml per minute. Generally, we use it at 2 ml per minute. So for 1 minute, only 2 ml of your solvent system moves through the column. So you can have your efficient purification process. And to the right side, in a detector, once the sample is being detected by the detector, you will have a recorder, a computer monitor, which shows you the peak. What are the different components present in the sample? So here is a picture which shows there are multiple peaks, of course, in which peak 2 and peak 4 are the major components present in your sample. Okay, and suppose this HPLC is fitted or fixed with the mass spectroscopy, and you are choosing that particular peak for the analysis. The mass spectroscopy will give you information about what is that particular sample component is, and you will get to know what is the purity of your sample, and after the purification, what is the concentration of that particular sample present in your extract. Routinely, as I mentioned, in the industry, they run an analytical technique of HPLC. We call it as LCMS, where you are simultaneously purifying and you are studying what is the nature of that particular phytocomponent, that is LCMS. So this is routinely used since it is a very rapid and it is an efficient method for the studying of the phytochemicals. And also this, see, many times when we run in a HPLC or any chromatographic technique, we use a standard, means whose property already we know. Suppose I think in laboratory we would have used gallic acid or caffeine or curcumin, whose entire biological property has been characterized. And if you are extracting a phytocomponent which nature you don't know, what is the nature, what is the biological property, nothing you know. Even in that case, LCMS will tell you information about your phytocomponent. Without having the standard also, you can study its purity as well as its chemical components. The last technique that I'm going to discuss is the gas liquid chromatography. So as the name itself is implying, we are using gas here. That is, we are using gas as a mobile phase, and the stationary phase here is the liquid. So many times we call this GC or GLC. Okay, and this is used for the nutraceutical or the phytochemical which is volatile in nature, means which can easily get evaporated. So you can use this technique only when your nutraceutical is volatile. It easily can get evaporated. Here we have gas. Basically, we use inert gases which is not reacting with your samples, which will not alter the nature of the sample. So basically, we use hydrogen, nitrogen, and helium, which are the inert gases which are used only to carry your sample component throughout the length of the column. Then there is an injector port to introduce the sample, and the mobile phase or the gas which flushes the sample into the column, and within the column there is a siliconized liquid which is used as a stationary phase, and and the sample based on its nature gets separated, gets partitioned, and it is separated and it gets eluted of the column, which can be identified by the detector, and further it is entering into the mass spectrometer. So it is GCMS. So this mass spectrometer, what it does is, once the sample enters into the instrument, it ionizes. You know that every object is made up of atoms. So atoms has a nucleus and an electron revolving around. So basically, this instrument separates the electrons from the nucleus. Okay, and that's how this process is called as ionization. So ionization is like once the electrons being separated, either it get a positive charge or the negative charge. So based on the ionization property, the sample can be characterized. So different functional groups, different atomic components, elements present in that particular phytochemical could be studied. So this is an important application which is used for the volatile phytochemicals, for example, like the aromatic oils, like the citrus oil, lemon oil. So many such spices which will have the aromatic oils could be characterized using the GCMS. The separation is again based as like the other routine chromatography techniques, that the relative interaction between the stationary phase and the mobile phase. Here comes which is widely used technique for the identification of the functional groups, that is FTIR, that is Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy. So any types of ionization process we subject either to the laser or to the infrared. So here we are using both the radiation, laser as well as infrared, to excite the electrons to jump from the ground state. So electrons, whenever they absorb any form of the light, they get excited and they move to the higher orbitals. Anything which is excited is unstable, which will not be there for a longer time. Again, it wants to come back to the ground state so that it can be more stable. And as it is coming back to the ground state, it emits the radiation at a different wavelength. And this is being exploited in analyzing the different functional group characterization of a phytochemical. This is very important whenever we are seeing for the purest nutraceutical, because nutraceuticals, whenever we use for the human use, maybe as a feed or whatever, it should not be it should not be harmful for the physiological process of the body. So we have to have its purest form. So once it is completely pure, we can have, many times we have a problem finding the specific plants or maybe the specific mentioned marine organisms to see for these nutraceuticals. So many times I think you've seen these Himalaya drugs. These Himalaya drugs, you think that every drug that they manufacture is extracted from the plants or from the insects or from the aquatic organisms? Definitely not possible. First batch, they use these plant sources, animal sources, or the marine organisms to extract and to characterize completely. Once it is characterized, they go for organic synthesis. They use these chemical synthetic methods. So using the chemical synthetic methods, they synthesize these phytocomponents, they synthesize these nutrauceutical. So for all such properties, this FTIR is much relevant. We use it. So these are very important and routinely used techniques. So I discussed both the techniques which can be used in a laboratory and we can use in the industries. So any questions, I'm happy to answer. Okay, thank you students for your patience. I know that this subject is quite an imaginary subject and it's quite difficult for you to understand since I have only discussed about the theoretical aspects. But when you handle all these instruments, I think you'll be able to understand it better. Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. It was a wonderful presentation. You gave insights about the basic nutraceuticals, different instrumentation for extraction of nutraceuticals. You also mentioned about the applications of nutraceuticals. You highlighted about the global nutraceutical market, actually, which is a very important point in view of commercial way. And also you explained about the processes of extraction, purification, and characterization in detail. Thank you very much, ma'am. Now I request our principal ma'am to do the honors. Applause, please. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lakshmi. Now we'll move on to our next speaker, Dr. Sri Lakshmi Desi Raju, the co-founder of biotech startup. It's for you people only. Please have excitation because an exciting topic is coming now. Thank you very much. Dr. Sri Lakshmi Desi Raju, co-founder, biotech startup, influencer, motivator, STEM advocator, women and subject advisor consultant. Is connected with the achievement. She believes with action. Neither are gender dependent. Man chose a path less trodden, engaging her and capability of technology and smash the glass ceiling of the stereotype perception that science and technology belong only to few and prevented some from engaging in the space. A fallacy with her achievements addressed seriously. Dr. Lakshmi ma'am is always happy to serve the needs of the society with scientific advancements. She blended technology with business to be a first-generation woman technopreneur in the field of probiotic industry, generating leads and new opportunities. An established influencer with both national and international experience in a research scientist with numerous research publications to her credit. She is also having national and international forums where she has showcased her expertise. Her background in technology commercialization is pivotal in envisaging multiple applications of a platform for generating different and sustainable revenue lines. Child-based Pharmaceuticals is a success story worth celebrating twice over. As a woman, she has against the tide to become a technopreneur as well as owning a company. Ma'am has also the patent, that is Canadian and European patent for technology to eliminate cold chain from the probiotics industry. She enjoys the best way to tell the story and then champion it. So she is a feminist to the core and she reaches out with an objective to inspire, motivate and encourage women and strongly advocates STEM as a path to choose to achieve their dreams. Ma'am has also excellent project management ability skills in collaborative team setting, a strong publication record both in scientific and business journals. She also is an independent director certified from Institute of Directors. On behalf of Padma Shri Institute of Management and Sciences, a hearty welcome and it's a great to your talk, ma'am. On the topic Pro and Prebiotics in Human Health, Current Scenario and Future Perspective. Over to you now.
There's a lot of disturbance. Can somebody mute everybody? Thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead. Am I audible? Thank you so much for having me at Padma Shri, Dr. Indu. It's absolute pleasure and privilege to be here talking to you guys. I really wanted to be there in person, but for a small accident that has happened in the house, and that has not allowed me to be with you guys, with you all. Being with the young minds is something that I cherish, and I'm really hoping that going forward, one of these days I will be at the institute to talk to you in person. So thank you so much, and if you can just get to the next slide. So pro and prebiotics in human health, current scenario and future perspective is what I would like to speak today. Can you hear me loud and clear?
One second, ma'am. 1 second.
And she's not audible. Yeah.
And please stop. Hello.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, hi.
Yeah, just hello, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Can I start?
Just a minute, ma'am.
Actually, we are able to hear you, but the thing is, for our mic, it is not catching. That's why we are trying, ma'am. Here, almost 200 students are sitting. They are not able to hear you. Yeah, just a few seconds.
No worries.
Share sound also. She's talking. I'll share the sound also. I'll share sound also. She can speak also. Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
This one can we connect? Podium. So for anyone else? To share. Then she can share the sound. But sometimes he cannot.
Ma'am, can you share?
No. Can you speak? No? Just check.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Sorry for
No worries at all. Technology is always a little difficult to manage with every single thing. I can't see my slides though. I can't see my slides.
Is it visible, ma'am?
Yes, it is visible.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
So should I start?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Dr. Indu, thank you so much for having me with you. It's a pleasure and privilege to be with you guys. And I'm really sorry that I'm not there in person, though I had promised you. There was a small accident in the house and that's why I had to stay back. But I'm very sure coming days or months, I will make a visit to your institute and will interact with the young minds. That is something I cherish and I am hoping to do that very soon. So today's topic is pro and prebiotics in human health, the current scenario and what are the future perspective. And I just say that probiotics is something that has really picked up or taken the center stage since the pandemic. If anything good has happened out of this pandemic, the one thing which is very important that pandemic has taught us is that we are now more prone to or more aware of good health and wellness. And that is the reason why probiotics have taken the center stage, because every single thing we realized that is related to gut. So as the pandemic started in 2020 as well as in 21, the first thing we did, I think so, was to go and look for the kashayams and the kadhas that your ajis and my grandmother made for us. Right? We didn't go for buying something else, but we went for finding out these details. So I think that is where the whole thing started. And I suddenly remembered my grandmother telling us that you are what you eat. Never understood that statement, but now as we work more in probiotics, I think so we understand more and more why these statements are made. Or I have a gut feeling that things are working or not working. I feel more in my gut, or as simple as if at all your gut is not working, your brain doesn't work. So definitely probiotic is one such thing which is going to change human life for better. And I'm here today to give you some perspective on these probiotics and hoping that you will have the interest, generate the interest in the young minds out there, in the students, that we will be able to do some more strong research in this area. Can I go to the next slide, please? Next slide, please. So we have figured this out, that the modern life and the fast food has increased the problem of digestion. It's always very nice to go to McDonald's and Pizza Huts and Domino's Pizza and order for pizza and eat it, or take a glass of Pepsi or Cola. I have nothing against these foods. All I'm trying to tell you is that when you eat these things there in your stomach, then you generally tend to see that there is a problem of digestion or bloating which happens after you eat it. It is not something that the food is able to, that the stomach is able to digest. And these poor eating habits, as well as coupled with stress, that is something which is very prominent, whether you are a student or whether you are a professional. These all things basically disturb something called as gut-brain axis. Now, what is gut-brain axis? That is from the gut, and it's the only organ in the whole body where from the gut, there is actually a nerve which is going all the way up to your brain, and 1/100th of a nanosecond, it keeps giving the information to the brain that whether it is what type of work it has to do, or what is it that in which form it is there, whether it is in a happy state or whether it is in a sad state. So we need to understand that sometimes these food that we eat are something that will actually allow the chemicals which come out after the digestion of this food is what these vagus nerve actually pick up, and from there it goes to the brain and gives the information whether the serotonin uptake should be there or the dopamine uptake should be taken less. And that's why as old as 460s BC, Hippocrates, actually the father of medicine, had said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And we all thought that how can food become medicine? Today we do understand more and more about it as to which food does what to your body and how you get sick or how you get well after eating particular type of food. So this gut bacteria that are called the good bacteria are actually something that is going to help us understand more in detail as to how things work for us or why things don't work for us. Next slide, please. So there is more, because of the pandemic, there is more and more understanding of these foods and more understanding of which combination of foods should be eaten. So Indian food is very well balanced, but still we are facing a lot of problem because the food that we are consuming these days is actually less nutritional because of the pesticides and the fertilizers and all kinds of other so-called bionutrients. Basically, these bacteria, which otherwise used to get to our food system or into our body by itself, is not happening. And that's the reason we have now a reason to understand how these bacteria work, what are they, why is it important to have these bacteria. Not just this, have these bacteria, the most important part of this whole system, ecosystem of good bacteria is which one are most responsible for what activity. And every single thing comes down to a small one cellular organism, which is actually defining who as a person you are in this world. The main thing which I have seen over the years is, initially when we take, if I plot it between the growth and the time and benefits, nutrition was the major thing that the food was eaten. Slowly, it went down to something called lesser evil food. Now, lesser evil food means these were the foods which were eaten, but we knew that, okay, excess of eating of any of these food might actually give trouble. Then, as we see the growth chart, the chart where growth versus times and benefits, we saw that the natural health foods actually took the next stage, where eating this natural health foods was more of a proactive steps, that is protection or risk reduction versus actually curing. Then we went into something called functional. It was labeled as functional food. That means as simple as your iodine goes with your Tata salt. And why does it go? The iodine which is required into your body, the Tata salt supplies it. And so that becomes a functional food. That becomes as simple as that. And that was also again for mostly protection and risk reduction. Then we went into another area called supplementation. Now supplements, everybody knows. If you are drinking Horlicks, Complan or any of those things, you have hordes of this advertisement telling you how do these Complan and Horlicks will help you to develop the kid, even though I have half of my attention there, because in hot milk, when you add all these things, how much of really the vitamins and minerals are present, God only knows. But at the same time, those were the supplements which were required. And people also started to realize that unless we take these supplements in vitamins and minerals, there is no way we are going to going to go forward in our lives, or the lives will be much more difficult. So this was for mostly the prevention part of your body. And lastly, and not very easily, but the COVID taught us very clearly about the medical foods. And one such example you saw, few of you got COVID, the others did not. We took pride in saying, I did not get COVID, mera immunity bahut acha hai, or my immunity is very strong. But that was not the case. The kashayams and the good bacteria which are there in your gut is the reason that it worked miraculously good for you. And that is how you did not get sick. And that kind of food is called the treatment food. Or there are some foods which you can, especially I'll take you through the process, through the journey of probiotics, where you can see how food, probiotics fortified food can actually become medicines for people who are suffering from irritable bowel syndrome, who are suffering from digestion issues, who are suffering from colic child, if it is there. So there are different kinds of foods that are there, which actually helps you in treatment. And that aligns us back to the previous slide where we said that let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. So going to the next slide. We see that food and fruit products have provided health, not only health, but also the benefits. What are the certain drivers and challenges? The previous speaker also told about these things that suddenly, I mean, in fact, from morning I'm attending the sessions, so not there in person. I've been seeing that most of the speakers were saying the same thing, that the driver or the drivers of these nutrauceutical suddenly has taken a center stage. Why? Because COVID taught us very clearly, if there is health, that is all we can, then we can do every single thing. So the understanding that prevention is better than cure, or the consumer health awareness, the lifestyle diseases which have gone on high, let alone lifestyle diseases. The slide is a little older slide, but even the latest in pandemic also we saw how it was difficult without maintaining. The people who had comorbidities, they suffered more compared to what we suffered in our who did not have comorbidities. The changing demographic, people are through the world, they are exchanging the ideas, they are exchanging, there are influencers who are speaking to the East so that they can take message from here and go to the West. Now, in COVID, if you have seen, the West got battered much more than what we got battered. And why did that happen? Because one, they have the air circulation. Every single building has an air circulation. So one person got sick, it released the virus in the whole building. Second thing, that was one part of it. And second thing, all they eat is processed food. So if you are having a processed food, obviously it is devoid of any of the good bacteria. If it is devoid of bad bacteria, it is also devoid of good bacteria. So these people did not have that much of strong immunity compared to what we have. I'm not saying that on the road when you eat pani puri, you will be having beneficial bacteria, but definitely eating pani puri on the road might get you H. pylori, but at the same time, that also can get you some of these bacteria that are good for your system. So we, by inherently, Indians have a very strong system, not because of anything else, but because of our eating habits. Right from the morning till evening, our foods, if we have to listen to our grandmothers and grandfathers or the older generation, our food is very balanced. Awareness about nutrition, not just animal, but about human nutrition, as well as there are a lot of R&D efforts are also happening. It is coming in different formulations, different formats, and that's why people are willing to look into supplement industry, which is poised to grow to $1.5 trillion as we go forward. But also there are some challenges. Now, what are these challenges? As much as I can talk about probiotics to you today, the only probiotics which you guys know very easily is your mushroom, or dahi, or curd, which is there. That is the only probiotic which is common. Though there are some few more, I will show it as we go forward. But that is not the truth. The probiotics, the prebiotics, the enzyme, and the delivery mechanisms have not been so much put in the public domain, that people do understand as to what it is that what it is that is available in the market right now. So more and more awareness has to be created. Yakult came into the in Japan in 1935 or 37 commercially. It came to India only in 2006. That is the nearest probiotic you guys would have known. And today in 2022, with a population of 138 crores, it still is nowhere to be seen. So you can imagine that Yakult still gives one-page ad in newspaper on Sundays to say as to why you should be drinking Yakult. Though Yakult has become a brand which is a little bit more recognizable in India. In tier 2 and 3 cities, it is still not there. So this awareness, absence of awareness, is something that the challenge we have to understand when we are dealing with prebiotic, probiotics, or enzyme. Can we go to the next slide, please? So what does nutraceutical actually consist of? You know, we talk a lot about these nutraceuticals, and from morning we have been hearing it. Even the previous speaker said nutraceuticals were coming from marine, it was coming from plant, and it was coming from probiotics, it was coming from nuts, it was coming from many other places. Now, what exactly are these nutraceuticals and why are they so important, and what is it that we have to understand? Of course, Ayurveda has been the root of all our innovations in the pharma. We cannot deny that without Ayurveda, there was no way we would have found out. Yes, Ayurveda did not give the scientific explanation. Those time and era were different. And so we did not, neither we understood what it was, nor we appreciated because it came without scientific evidence. But in today's world, we see a lot of clinical data or other data which will at least tell us that yes, Ayurveda or herbal phytochemicals are something that is important. We have been through the pandemic. Didn't you guys eat harshana? That is your turmeric. Now, what is that phytonutrient which is there? It is the curcuminoids. There are 3 curcuminoids which are there, which actually helps these harshana or your turmeric to be effective. And that is exactly the previous speaker told. In fact, I enjoyed her lecture because I'm a natural product chemist. And I know when she was taking through the methods of isolation of these products, actually it took me back into my PhD days. So that is how you isolate them. Once you isolate them, then you take that thing and make it in a concentrate format and give it in form of capsules. Or funny enough, actually in US, the only thing which sold over the last 2 years was golden milk or golden latte. And when people told me it is coming from India, I was a little taken aback, and I'm like, what is it actually? What is golden latte? And then I come to know it is nothing but our turmeric milk. So that is the kind of strength that Ayurveda has, except that the clinical or the scientific explanation was not given. Hence, people did not take it seriously. Second thing was the nutrients, that is the vitamins, minerals, amino acid, fatty acid. You all know what vitamin D3 absence can do. We have seen it through the pandemic. People who were low in immunity had also vitamin D problem. Not just that, vitamin D3 in last 2 years, kids have not gone out. We are going to see a major issue in coming few months, because now we are post-pandemic, hopefully, and we will need really supplementation of vitamin D3 in people. Same thing with amino acids. People have figured out as small as Amveka Neutralite. That is the easiest way you can see how these amino acids can be absorbed. Then there are dietary supplements. That is the new area that is called probiotics, prebiotics, enzymes, antioxidants. Obviously, these are also isolated from some of these older or decade-long practices. But now they have a name and they have a reason as to why it has to be taken, when it has to be taken, and how it has to be taken. And there is actually a clinical study to show that it does its work. The therapeutic area, which are really becoming an issue right now, which I see in last 2 years, is first and foremost has become us digestion. Now digestion, because obviously people were homebound, people ate anything and everything. So definitely digestion took a very big toll. We all have increased our our vital signs, as well as we all have increased our weight. So that is something that needs to be really looked into, and so nutraceutical companies are looking into this area. Another big problem that we are seeing, work from home brought in sleeping disorders. There used to be a system. We used to get up in the morning, we used to do our work, we used to go to the offices, we used to come back home, eat dinners and sleep. Now that thing took off because we were all working from home. As much as we were working very diligently in our offices, we also were binging on Netflix and Prime Video. We have been having one after another serials and movies being seen. And these people now cannot sleep. They do not, one, the body is not tired. Second, they are getting into more and more of these binge watching onto all these serials and all these other things that are available. And so that has gotten very, very seriously into sleeping disorders. Third thing was osteoporosis. Calcium as such also is a very difficult and is always in an inorganic form, which to be absorbed in the body. And with absence of vitamin D, which helps the absorption, as well as with the absence of any of this supplementation, more and more ladies are being detected of osteoporosis lately. Diabetes, that is another big problem that India is a hub of it. I don't have to emphasize on it. Anti-arthritic, again, calcium issues, as well as the inflammation that happens. But for inflammation, there is something that the probiotics can do. Cholesterol, and lastly but not least, the neurological problems. We are going to see a lot of mood disorders or the neurological, the Alzheimer and the Parkinson diseases going forward because of post-pandemic. We are seeing not many cases compared to what it was. And all these things can actually be stopped if we took our food and eating habits very seriously. Can we go to the next slide? Or the nutraceuticals along with the food. So I know you have been hearing a lot about all the other nutraceuticals, and especially the phytochemicals. I've been seeing since morning, so many lectures have been there, and they were so rich in their delivery as well as the material. Today I just take only one and a part of it, and that's called probiotics. So why probiotics? What are actually probiotics? Because bacteria up till now for us was new. They are bad way. You see so many ads, right from Lifebuoy Sabun to Dettol to everything, where they say, hey, you know what, you need to kill this bacteria. So every single time it was bad bacteria. Bacteria means bad. But here we are saying that there are actually good bacteria. There are actually bacteria which help us. So what is it that they do, and why is it that why probiotics? So probiotics are nothing but live microorganism, which when administered in adequate amounts confer a health benefit to the host. And there are some specific bacteria which do. Not every bacteria is a probiotic. So there are bad bacteria and there are good bacteria, but this good bacteria means they should be doing following. One, they should be giving something called SCFA, that is the short chain fatty acids, and these are the acetates and the lactates, lactic acid and the propionic acid and the butyric acids. They should make antimicrobial peptides, and if you have these antimicrobial peptides, then they can fight it with the bad bacteria. They should reduce sugars. That is where they will eat and they will grow in numbers in your tummy. So when you are, and I'll come back again to this topic as we go forward, but when you are born, not just that you have to be thankful to your mother that she gave birth to you with all the pains, but she also gave you a small set of bacteria which actually over the period of time goes and develops enough that it brings the immunity to you. What do you mean, and what is it that I'm talking? Have you ever made masru in your house or curd in your house? What do? You take a small culture of curd and you put it in lukewarm milk, and the whole milk after 8 hours or 6 hours or overnight turns into curd, right? So that means there is a fermentation process which is happening, and all these good bacteria or the lactobacilli or the Streptococcus thermophilus will curdle the milk, and that becomes a curd. Same way when you are born, so be thankful to your mother. One, she gave you birth. And second thing, not just she gave you birth, she gave you this small set of bacteria which went into your tummy during the birth process. So if you had, so the kids who are with C-section have a serious health, have a digestion issue or have a health issue in earlier days, come vis-a-vis kids who are born naturally, because through the vaginal canal when you are actually born is when this small set of bacteria are given to you, and then after that through the mother's milk actually these bacteria they increase, and we'll go into the infant nutrition a little bit later in the slides. But all I'm trying to tell you is go and thank your mom today, because it's not only she brought you in this world, but also gave you a defense mechanism to fight out the bad bacteria and become who you are today. So these probiotics, they can be ingested as food. They prevent harmful bacteria from multiplying. They improve bowel movement. They aid digestion, and they reach the intestine alive. Now, why should they reach the intestine alive, and what's the big deal about it? The big deal is once these good bacteria are there in your intestine, then all you have to take care of it is you have to eat good prebiotic. Now, these prebiotics are nothing but complex carbohydrate products which these probiotics will eat. So prebiotics are actually the food for probiotics. Can we go to the next slide, please? And I would insist as to why these probiotics. The reason is if you get sick, suppose as simple as you get a stomach bacteria, which is a bad bacteria for you. You ate your pani puri, and that pani puri ended up having some other infection because the pani was not distillery water or sterile pani. So you got some bad bacteria along the way. Now, when you do the antibiotic treatment, then obviously because of that bad bacteria, there is a disturbance in intestinal microbiota, and it allows the Clostridium to overgrow, producing toxins. So even if you give antibiotic, this antibiotic will kill the bad bacteria or the pathogen, but on the side, it will also give you diarrhea. There is an antibiotic associated diarrhea which is there. So antibiotic when you are giving, it's just like a bullet. If you just shoot a bullet, it would not know whether you are a good person or a bad person. Same way in the intestine, when an antibiotic goes, it will not only kill the bad bacteria, bad pathogen, but also will kill your good bacteria. The same thing if we did it with probiotic. If the intervention was probiotic, so what did we do? We, instead of antibiotic treatment, if we get the probiotic treatment, this Clostridium difficile, because of which you have got the stomach upset, will be taken care of there and there itself. Once the probiotic kills that overgrowth of this Clostridium toxins do not take place, and the microbiota goes back into balance. One such very good product, actually, we also had one product called Probiotic, and as I said, I'll come back to it as we go further. But another such product which is available in the market is from Dr. Reddy's called Econom. So those are the products which will not give you some side effects. These are the products which will go and help you to treat the problem, but at the same time not give you side effects. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the difference between antibiotic and probiotic is that antibiotic might actually end up giving you a side reaction, whereas probiotic would not. Now, what is the history? We might as well find out. Bacteria have been there for ages. What is the big deal that we are not talking about it? So in 1907 was the first time when Metchnikoff actually found these bacteria. And today, and in 1989, it took Fuller defined the term probiotics. Actually, 74 itself, they realized that there are these good bacteria. They isolated, they named them, the taxonomy started. But in 89, the definition of probiotics came, that these are the live organisms. If ingested in proper amount, it is helpful for good health. Can we go to the next slide? Now, also there are something called prebiotics. As I said earlier also, that prebiotics are nothing but they are the complex carbohydrate systems which actually the probiotics will break down and eat it. Why should probiotics eat it? So that they can hold in numbers, develop themselves in numbers enough that the balance between the bad bacteria and the good bacteria is done. So as soon as the balance weighted, there is a sheer clean balance that your good bacteria should be more than bad bacteria or pathogen. And if the balance is disturbed, that is when you get there is a disease. And what are these prebiotics? So obviously this balance has to be maintained again. And so for maintaining this balance, we have to feed something to this bacteria. The bacteria cannot eat your pizzas and burgers and fries and Pepsi Cola. So that's why you have to feed something which will give one of these at least, or there is a combination of pre and probiotics to be taken so that your bacteria can actually get enough of food that they multiply. So your bacteria, that good bacteria or probiotics, not only eats, keeps you healthy, but they also multiply in numbers so that you do not have to keep replenishing it again and again. So prebiotics, and where do you get all these things? Mostly comes from the fresh fruits, foods, as well as more of towards the fibers. Fibers are not just the roughages for your excretion, it is also will give some of these foods to the probiotics. Can we go to the next slide? So prebiotics and probiotics in the current scenario, please go to the next slide. We find these applications mostly into dairy-based products. So you can see Amul has a sugar-free ice cream, which is a probiotic. And it says actually, because I pulled it out from the internet today morning. And I saw that India's only probiotic sugar-free treat. Then there is Amulka probiotic Dahi. So even Dahi is being fortified with probiotics. So do you understand why it is? Because everybody says, and I deliberately put this picture because everybody thinks, masru tinta idini, majjige kudita idini. What is the deal? Why should I eat probiotics? The reason is because masru and majjige, what you are taking, those are good, but it has only one type of bacteria. Otherwise, through your lifetime, you would be having 500 to 1,000 different species. And not just species, you actually will have trillion bacteria in your gut. Okay, so this is the reason why you even Amul ice cream, even Amul is fortifying their dahi and their ice creams with probiotics. So you can imagine that the very source from where you isolate these probiotics are getting fortified with probiotics, and that makes it even more interesting that and validates the idea that I was sharing with you, that we are not getting the food that we are eating is just less by 40% in nutrition. Since we are not getting a good food, maybe because of adulteration, maybe because of the type of food, maybe because of the extent of some foods, we are facing a major problem wherein we need to actually take either a capsule, pill, or some food which are fortified with probiotics, different type of species of probiotics, and so that our digestion and our systems can be maintained happy. In this case, if you see at the bottom, just a little bit, if you can push the slide up, just a little bit. Yeah, that's enough. That's enough. Enough. So the reason I'm saying, if you see one of the pictures out there, it has a khaman dhokla, it has some dahi out there, there's some lassi out there, or majjike out there, it has idlis out there, it has one red color juice, which could be more of kombucha or some of those things there. Our system itself, or the ganjis that we are made to drink in sometimes by our parents or our grandmothers or our elders in the family, our system is very balanced, very balanced. It's just that we have forgotten it. And since we have forgotten it, we have to have this whole new area of probiotics. Good for my company or good for our company, but obviously it is something that you need to understand, that the food that you are eating has to be balanced enough. It is not just eating dahi alone that will help you, but it is eating along with the other food, which are fermented food, is when the balance of the system takes place. And you see, I am not sure, I mean, had I been there, I would have seen the children actually looking at the slide and asking them these questions. If you have seen, all these foods are dairy based. That means they require cold chain. And why do I say that? In this season, if you keep your dahi outside or masru outside, it takes only 1.5 days for that masru to turn little sour and your mom to make curry out of it or make something else out of it. You keep the dosa ittu or the idli ittu outside, the whole house will start stinking. That means, but the same thing, if it is left in the fridge, it stays there for 7 days, right? So if you are sick, that means between 2 to 8 degrees, as long as you are maintaining the cold chain, it's good to go. But if you are not maintaining the cold chain, then things go bad. So this actually is creating a limitation for people to have probiotics. Why? Because if suppose somebody is lactose intolerant, it is not very prevalent in India, but in North America, Europe, lactose intolerance is very high because casein is not able to be digested by the body. So in such cases, it becomes very difficult for such people to eat any dairy-based product. And they are the ones which require probiotics more than anyone else actually. So this is the reason why we should be very, very understanding as to what is it that we are eating, how is it we are eating, and why is it that we are eating. Next slide, please. There are lots. So as I said, in the current scenario, there are probiotics which are being in the fortification of the dairy products, or probiotics which are in the cold chain, like Yakult. But there are definitely, so in the future, what is it that we are seeing in the probiotics? And the new age probiotics or prebiotics are something which are taken up by storm, to the extent that the nutraceutical industry actually is going to go to $1.23 billion by 2026. And I think, no, sorry, not so, my apology, not $1.23 billion, it is $1.23 trillion. And that is something, a huge, huge opportunity for both probiotic people as well to work in this area, as well as for you boys and girls out there to think microbiology as actually your career forward. Because these are some of the new age things which are coming up, which will take a big stand in the nutraceutical as well as the health industry going forward, because every single person has now figured it out that unless you take care of the health, there is no way you can survive, you can do anything else. So what was the, I'm not taking the nutraceutical industry issue, but definitely I'll address the probiotic industry issue. As we saw just now in the last slide, the medium of consumption was only through dairy products or through the cold chain products, right? Obviously, that is giving us a limited option that only freeze-dried strains are available in the market. So any probiotic strain has to be maintained between 2 to 8 degrees. This has led to limited application, obviously. Why? Because now if you cannot eat dairy products, only Amul is there with Amul ice cream is there with probiotic, or Amul dahi is there with probiotic. Are you seeing some chocolates? Are you seeing some bread, or are you seeing some bakery items with probiotics? No. Why? Because anyway, they do not sustain at that temperature. So there's no way we can see those probiotics. So we don't have much choices. Whatever is available, you are eating it. Even if you want to go and take the supplement, if you see the bottle, it says at the time of manufacturing. Now, how do you know what you're eating? You might be eating dead bacteria because that fellow is kept in the bottle for 6 months. There's no, and if 2 to 8 degrees is not maintained, maybe you're eating only dead bacteria. Nothing wrong with eating dead bacteria, but that's not why you gave that money for, right? Plus the bottles always say 60 billion, 120 billion, 200 billion. Why do we need it? We don't. FDA says 1 to 5 billion per day. So why do we need it? The only reason why we do that is because to maintain that the label claim of 1 to 5 billion per day, you need to put so much of overages there. And that's why when you put 300% of overages, obviously it becomes expensive. The supply chain hassle, just imagine our Yakult people, nice people, they made a very beautiful product. It's Shirota strain has 300 plus clinical trials to show how it helps the immunity And it is not just to one set of population, it is there to the whole world actually. All different populations, they have done this clinical studies. Yakult comes out from the factory, Yakult goes in the cold chain, they maintain that cold chain, they come to the distributor, distributor maintains the cold chain, it is sent to the retailer, retailer also maintains the cold chain. But the kirana ka vyapari, that corner store wala, no, while going home, forget about him, even Reliance does in some places, I've seen in Bangalore. They simply turn off the light and the electric power and go. Now your Yakult is sitting there without any 2 to 8 degrees for the whole night. Next day morning, that Yakult water, how much of live bacteria is there? How do you know? It claims it has 650. But what do you know? How much is there? So as long as we, as especially country like India, and so then you can't send anything to tier 2, 3, 4 cities. There's no way you can send any of these products to those cities. So as long as we do understand that we can make it free of that temperature dependency, I think we have done a big favor in the probiotic industry. And with all these things comes the formulation issues, because I'm not saying that there are no other methodologies with which you can't stabilize the probiotics. The world is eating stable probiotics through either micro encapsulation or through genetic modifying. That is enteric coating. That means, you know, you take one bhaji, one onion, put it in your besan, and just fry it. That becomes a nice thing to eat, right? Same way, these probiotics are taken and made a cover over it. But when you do that, the problem is there is one process added, so the cost increases. And also, it has to go into your stomach, and this encapsulation has to open up. Once it opens up, then the probiotic has to travel all the way to your gut. So the pH also is an issue. So how much really it is helpful, we don't know. So with all these problems, we realized that the market pain of probiotic was that it had to become, next slide please, it had to become temperature and pH stable. At Triphase, when we started this journey in the year 2011, we had understood that this is the market pain. And there are a few colleagues of mine who are going to take you through Triphase online today. One such person is Mr. Irfan Sharif, and he is the one actually brain behind by putting this probiotics into temperature stable. He's a microbiologist of the highest order, and he's the one who actually worked on this area. So you'll be interacting with him, talk to him, ask him questions so that you understand it more. So at that point, when we started, we did not know how we will do it, but we definitely discussed between us that we are not going to take this, we are not going to put genetic modification, and we are not going to encapsulate. And can we make these probiotics temperature stable? Next slide, please. I'm very happy to share. In 2015, Irfan and his team were actually successful in making the first probiotic, which was from the lactobacilli species, to be temperature stable. Now, I'm saying temperature stable means actually we have a stability data where we have kept these probiotics at 40 degrees centigrade and 75% RH, which is a accelerated stability data. Here we are talking about something which was not even between 2 to 8 degrees. You kept at room temperature and that probiotic bacteria died. And now we are talking that we have a 6 month stability data which showed that these probiotics were temperature stable. Once they came to that stage, we were able to incorporate them in different food matrix. So both be it the confectionery matrix where we made gummies and we made chocolates, or whether it was the bakery matrix, we were able to take these probiotics and show that they sustain that temperature. So the Triphase became the world's, not just India's, actually, the slide should change. It became a global company and only biotech company where high temperature stable probiotics strains through strain boost technology was produced. But the way it is if you put it in different food matrix, you saw at until what temperature it would. stabilized. Can we go to the next slide? Obviously, with this technology in our hand, the first thing we did, because we were a company and not an academic institution, we did was we sent it for patenting. And very happy again to share that in 2018, we got our US patent. Not just we got our US patent, they allowed us to patent our bacteria also. So we got a US patent. Then we got a European patent, which was validated in 11 countries. And then we got a Canadian patent. We also look forward to Indian as well as the other contributors. So with that patents in our hands, we found out the USP was that the product got stable, that we saw 18 months ka shelf life in the regular probiotic thing. Then we saw that there is no need for this cold change supply. We saw that there was a different applications you could make. We also saw that the label claim was much better because we did not have to add overages, and we could write on the bottle saying that it has a shelf life of so many months, depending on what product we made. Can we go to the next slide? So pre and probiotics, with this new age probiotics, we said, can we do some of these POCs and see whether it works for us? Next slide, please. And in confectionery, this was the first thing we made. And so that's why I have put in here where we had made probiotic gummies, which actually had a shelf life. Also, through the probiotic gummies, we did the shelf life study and we saw that it was stable until 12 months. Can we go to the next slide? So we established several POCs. It was in gummies, it was in chews, it was in chocolates, it was in bakery, it was in different things where we saw that based on the strain boost technologies, we were able to address some of the manufacturing challenges. Can we go to the next slide? The pre and probiotics also have pharma application. As much as we were happy to say that we produced some of these delivery vehicles where they became free of cold chain, there were some pharma applications also we saw. Can we go to the next slide? And so the gut function was the basic in pharma application. There is gut function in the case of digestion, biggest was digestion. So you had C. difficile problem, you had irritable IBS problem, you had gut pain sensation, lactose indigestion, transverse diarrhea, and gut bacteria were the ones through which you had to cure rather than going to the antibiotic way. Not only this, and that's why there is actually actually understanding, and if you just Google it out, you will see there's so much material now on the internet saying there is a gut-brain axis. That is, if the gut is not correct, and it's as simple as what it is, if your gut was having either diarrhea or constipation, your brain doesn't work. You are under pressure because of that. Or if there was a lot of stress, there was stress because of some external environment, your gut takes a hit. You don't feel hungry, or you feel too much hungry, right? So during exam time, especially, either you are binge eating and eating too much, or you are not eating at all. Why? Because the gut and the brain, they talk to each other at 1/100th of a nanosecond. Now your brain is seeing some kind of stress that I have to go and give the exam. Your gut says, okay, forget it, I'm not eating it. And did you ever see that when you go for giving your exams, your mother used to give you a dahi mixed with a little bit of sugar? Every single time you went for exam, your mom would give that, or she would make some badam ka halwa. At least my mom did it, so I can tell about that part. So these small things were actually given so that your gut bacteria they stabilize and they carry themselves, so that you can actually work around it, and you can you could have a head which was much more calmer, and you could write your exams. So these were some of the things. So gut was the first thing that the probiotics addressed. Along with it, now there is so much of research and clinical explanation being given, where we can see that in skin, there is a gut-skin axis. Dental, there is actually a gut oral care oral axis. The biggest is psychobiotics. actually so much of clinical evidence has been formed that now there is a new term which has been coined for it. And these food or the probiotics help either the dopamine or the serotonin uptakes or the happy chemicals that are there in the body, in the brain. And they allow the balancing of these chemicals in case there is a stress, there is a depression. I mean, all these great celebrities, they come on the national TV and say, I fought depression. And to be truthful to you, I don't understand that. Because I just don't understand, when you have money, when you have fame, when you have name, when you have good face, what is there to be get depressed about? At least living mortals like us, we all strive for only that part. But then we don't understand that how this gut is really affecting the brain when there is a high level of stress, how to cope up, because that industry is not easy to be. Same thing, if the infant has not gotten his probiotics, then they are prone to asthma and atopic dermatitis, that is nothing but eczema. Then there is metabolic syndrome. We all are fighting obesities. We all want to become Kareena Kapoor with 0 figures. We all want to have 6 abs, but then for that to happen, these gut bacteria are the reason. So take care of these small bacteria and they will make you look good also. Apart from that, there are cold and respiratory infection. We just saw the pandemic and we realized how much they play havoc in our lives. Can we go to the next slide? So pharma applications are enormous when it comes to probiotics.
Excuse me, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt you. Ma'am, we are running out of time, ma'am. Sorry.
Sure.
Sorry for that. Yeah.
I'll just close it in very quick minute.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Can we go to the next slide? So these are some of the products. That is Probiosac, which is only for diarrhea. These slides are there with you guys. See it if you want to talk to me, and there are anytime. Can we go to the next slide? This one was for vaginal, and this was also triphase product. Can we go to the next one? So it was in infant nutrition, where the birth canal, breastfeeding, and the environment was reason for the probiotics to, which actually, go to the next slide, which actually tells you how it is important and why it is important for a natural birth. So right here, if in this left-hand slide where the development of intestinal microbiota, you can actually see that which are the first set of bacteria which come, and then later on which other set of bacteria come. Right at day 1 to 3, those are the critical period when you have to have a bifidobacteria, and then you get the other set of bacteria. Can we go to the next slide? Next slide, please. These are all about how the infant nutrition is important. Yes. On this slide, just I would like to say that if there was a normal delivery and a breastfeeding happening, then it promotes healthy intestinal microbiota, which defines who you are. Whereas if the C-section or formula feeding happens, then it hinders it. And between these two lies the probiotic supplementation, where we have the bifido as well as lactobacilli, which can actually help us to deal with the problem and improve. So kids, next slide, please. So kids who are born with these problems, they are generally colic. Keep going. Next slide, please. And just go through quickly with the other slides, because this is not, this just stay on this slide. So these, the children which are not born naturally, which are with C-section, those are the children which have to be actually taken care of, because they do not have those set of bacteria that otherwise you would have had, or the mothers who are not able to lactate and not able to pass on the good bacteria's benefits to the child. Those are the things that needs to be really taken care of. The safety studies, as much as I am very pro Pongo about talking about probiotics, there must be some safety studies which have been done. There are hundreds and hundreds of clinical trials now available, at least on these safety studies of lactobacilli and bifido in infants. So 4,000 children were taken, preterm babies and infants, and it was found that probiotics do not have any adverse side effects. No evidence of higher incidence of infection was reported. Can we go to the next slide? So I would like to conclude here with probiotics that it is better to have prevention versus cure. You have seen it. Prevention versus cure, because that, you have seen it in pandemic, how it is important. You need to know how much you have to take, which concentration, time, duration of these nutraceutical, and how it influences on human health, how you can manipulate the foods and concentrate of active ingredients can be increased, which you have seen through the morning, how those things help you, how you can isolate it. Holistic approach has to be there. You have to have an active lifestyle with exercise and good food habits to have a healthy lifestyle. Next slide. I think this is my last slide. Thank you so much. It was absolute pleasure to be with you guys. I'm hoping that it has given you fair amount of input. And I'm hoping that going forward, there will be some interest that you would have in this area. These are my coordinates. If you want to talk about any of these products, I'm more than happy. Thank you so much, Dr. Indo. It's absolute pleasure.
Literally, thank you very much, ma'am, for such an insightful presentation. You highlighted about the evolution of foods, food or food products that provide health and medical benefits, including the prevention and treatment of diseases. And you also have highlighted about the drivers and challenges of nutraceuticals, therapeutic areas covered by nutraceuticals. You mentioned about the probiotics for health benefits, history of probiotics, application of prebiotics and probiotics, action of antibiotics versus action of probiotics, and also mentioned about the new age prebiotics and probiotics and what are the industry issues need to be faced. And you also introduced us about the triphase and the USP patent technology. Thank you very much, ma'am. We have enhanced not by calories, but by your knowledge that you shared with us. Literally, thank you very much, ma'am.
My pleasure and privilege. And now I'm hoping that you will also see triphase. So once you see it, you will know where these probiotics are made and how they are. I look forward for you to get enriched in this area. And if any questions anytime, more than happy, either me or my team can answer. Thank you so much.
Since we are running out of time, the questions they would mail you and the participants would mail questions. Like, how about having a tour now? It's amazing, right? So we shall have a virtual tour of nutraceutical industry, Triphase Pharmaceuticals, with Dr. Irfan Shrek, Chief Scientific Officer. Sir is a visionary, seasoned and dynamic professional offering 21 years of in-depth scientific, regulatory and clinical knowledge of industrial experience in developing latest patentable probiotic fermentation technologies focused on driving corporate growth and innovation by translating goals, objectives into actionable strategies, operating plans that support the business. Possess profound understanding of probiotics, prebiotics, enzymology, preclinicals, biotransformations, formulations, and method developments for pharma, food, and nutraceutical dietary supplement applications. Adapted revitalizing operations and reinvigorating underperforming individuals, teams, and divisions to generate sustainable productivity gains and surpass established goals. Gain reputation as a self-starting leader who consistently drive vision toward successful completion while implementing collaborative and scale initiatives that elevate staff performance, project coordination, and quality assurance. Demonstrate ability in clarifying unseen interconnectedness with big picture vision of key projects.
లేదు ఒక ప్రింట్
Now let's navigate with sir for a technical tour. Over to you now, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I hope I'm clearly audible to everybody. And I thank you, Shri ma'am, for introducing the company. And can you hear?
రిజిస్టర్ కాల్ లేదు
Hello.
నిన్న పంపించిన చూడు అమృతలక్ష్మి ఈవినింగ్ ఫోన్ ఎత్తలే
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yeah, thank you. I really thank Padmashri Institute for giving us an opportunity to come forward and say how the nutraceutical companies are coming up. And Dr. Shri, madam, has already explained you a lot of things which we work together. And I had a very good time with her, and that's how we developed a lot of temperature stable probiotics, which madam has already explained you. And I will show you how we really make them and what kind of infrastructure is required, what kind of facilities required to make up all these things. So already, because I don't want to take much time, so already I've come in the change room where I've come and we have done the change room, because we as humans, we carry more load. So, 75% of the load is taken care by us to avoid, since we are handling microbes. So most of the microbes, what we grow here are good bacteria. To avoid any cross contaminations here, so there is a process to enter the lab and to exit the lab. So I'm here in my change room. I've come and done a small changeover. So I'll be taking you inside the lab and showing you each room, which has been designed as per the Gmp flow of the process. So I'll just take you to the clean room, and there I'll explain you how we make these probiotics and how they are really useful, and keeping in mind all the critical control parts. Just 1 minute. So we have just so here we are in our clean corridor, where we come in from this change room, and we come inside this clean corridor. In the clean corridor, we have a lot of air handling units which are mentioned to maintain a clean area. This is our class 10,000 area. A class 10,000 area is a class area where less than 10,000 particles are allowed. So keeping in mind all the microbes, what we handle. So what we do is, what and all we wear aprons in this clean corridor or something. When we go to the class 10,000 area, we see that we do again changeover and do a changeover in this lab, so that we again come in and try to reduce the microbial load. So this is your class 10,000 area, and what you see, the blue color light, is your laminar airflow, which is there in the class area, where most of the microbes we transfer here, which are kept in the instrumentation room. I may show you one of your vials, which we take it from where and how we grow it. So we have a class area here with a laminar airflow, and we have a microscope here, so to see all the microbes and other things. And there are a couple of equipments which are kept in the class areas. Right now, a couple of bacteria we have just inoculated, just to show you how they grow. We have a shaker here where we have kept them inside the shaker. So here we maintain a temperature of around 37 degrees, so that the bacteria what we grow has an optimal temperature for the growth, where we grow them under controlled conditions. This is your shaker. And these are the flasks which we give them food. Like most of us, what we eat, like carbon, nitrogen, and trace minerals, even these bacteria require a known amount of food which they want in the form of carbon and nitrogen. So we grow them under controlled conditions in the shaker. So we plug them with the cotton plugs in the flask like this, and we are allowed to grow for 18 to 24 hours. Once they grow, we check the microscopy and other critical parameters which are required. So followed by that, we have a small equipment here, a small lab centrifuge, which are used for spinning down your cells and separating your cells. So this particular room, we use it only for the inoculation of your bacteria. And once the bacteria grows, this is a part of upstreaming, where a lot of bacteria grows in the form of, they double to 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and they turn into millions and billions under controlled conditions. So once we grow them under these conditions, we have a fermentation area which is right next to the clean areas, because it has to be attached in the same process, so that you don't have to go to some other room, because this is a Gmp Flow. So I will just show you the seed fermenter and the major fermenter, where we do the fermentation. So this is your 25-liter fermenter, a geometric volume with a working volume of 19 liters. So this fermenter is what we use for growing the bacteria, because in shake flask when you grow, the conditions are not suitable. So on an industrial scale, these equipments, what you see here, we have a 25-liter with a working volume of 19 and a 150-liter with a working volume of 100 liters. These are all automated systems where less of manhandling is there, where you can automatically access your screen and control all your process parameters which are required for the bacteria to grow. So when the bacteria they require to grow, what we do is we clean the fermenters through a lot of CIPs, then run filter sterilization, line sterilization, drain line sterilizations, then empty vessel sterilization. Then we charge in the medium so that the bacteria grows. So what and all I showed you the flask in the shaker room just now. Those flasks from 100 ml to 1 liter will go. 1 liter, it comes up to the small 25 liter. In the 25 liter, under controlled conditions of temperature, pH, and agitation and aeration, once they reach a critical point, what we decide whether the bacteria is eaten up all the culture and the pH is under the optimized conditions. So we transfer this from this to the bigger fermenter through sterile conditions, so that the fermentation happens in this bigger fermenter. Here, from the cells which are hardly in millions, once it reaches this fermentation under a controlled carbon, nitrogen, and this one, the cells multiply in such a way that they go up to 500 to 600 billion cells, depending on the kind of lactobacilli or any other probiotic cultures which you are growing. So usually they scale up to very good high levels in these conditions. And what and all technology Dr. Shree's madam told about you is we have developed a technology, strain boost technology, which has catered to a lot of market pains where we can develop these strains into temperature stable on. We don't need any kind of cold storage. Usually in other industries, after the fermentation happens, I will take you to the downstreaming. They take up for the filtration. When filtrations are done, we do it at room temperature because our bacteria is stable. So this is my centrifugation room. So where we have a tubular centrifuge of 300 liter per hour capacity, where we spin down. Inside that, there is a sterile bowl which is kept where most of your bacteria after fermentation gets collected. So these rooms, what we have is all normal room temperature rooms which are required. Unlike other companies where they require a lot of cold storage and other things which are required. Even for the machine, they have to run at 4 degrees centigrade. So that's how we have maintained and developed this proprietary technology, for which we have a lot of US, Canadian, and European patents. So once this bacteria grows in the fermenter, we push it through the sterile lines to the centrifuge. From the centrifuge, once you collect the bacterial cells, we take it to the class area, class 10,000 area. We collect all the cells. Once the cells are collected, we bring it to the spray dryer room. We have a spray dryer room here. So this is our spray dryer room where we have the spray dryer, which has been right now dismantled for cleaning purpose. So once these bacteria, they grow and reach a certain point, after we collect the pellet, it is dried using this spray dryer. We dry it at a temperature of inlet of 120 to 130 degrees centigrade and an outlet of 80 degrees with a flow rate of 3 to 4 ml per minute. So once you get a powder, clean powder, that powder is taken up for a lot of microbiology and chemical analysis. So once the microbiology and chemical analysis are completed, based on the client's requirement, we need to formulate. So I have just come to the formulation room where I'm showing you, this is your double coating blender of 100 kg capacity. Usually most of the probiotics, what we manufacture here are having a really high concentrated counts. These counts has to be reduced depending on the end user's applications, because as per WHO, per day, a normal human adult can take between 5 to 10 billion, depending on the kind of dosage is been recommended and the kind of application the probiotics are. So we try to dilute them using this double cone blender. Once the double cone blender dilution is done, once from 400, imagine client wants 100 billion, so we reduce it down to 100 billion. So once we reduce it down to 100 billion, this particular powder, which has been diluted using food grade excipients, which are approved by FDA and other things, is quickly moved on to the sifter. In the sifter, what we do is everybody at home, when you make chapatis, and you try to sieve out the flour so that there is no particles. So the client asks a particular sieve so that he makes his application into a sachet or a tablet or a capsule. So this is a vibro sifter what we have, wherein you can see 2 arms are there. we have a known mesh in that. When you put your material from up, your material passes down and gives you a good uniform quality of the powder. Once again, this formulation happens, the quality control samples is taken up. And once these samples are filled into drums, HDP blue drums, we have a semi-finished and finished area here where the drums are kept into these conditions. So unless the QC releases them. So we have a finished area and a quarantine area where, depending on the kind of test report the quality control person gives, we take it up for a lot of microbiology and chemical analysis. Once chemical analysis are approved and the microbiology analysis is approved, we ship it to the clients depending on their requirements. So this flow, what you saw is a GMP flow in the corridor, first corridor where I have, where most of the flow is controlled under a GMP flow because each room has its own connection. So this is a GMP flow which is required in most of the pharma and fermentation industries, depending on the products what they make. This is the kind of flow should be there. The flow should not be haphazard, so that your microbes or anybody doing a cross contamination. So anybody working in this place never goes out to some other place to do a cross contamination, because they try to be in this area to control the process and finish up the process on time. Because unless you don't keep up to those processes on time, your product ends up in getting contaminated, or it will not be fit as per the specifications which is required by the client. So this whole place, what we have is a small pilot scale fermentation unit. The similar larger scales will be in a larger facility which is coming up in Mysore on a large scale, which it's getting under construction right now. So once this is the same flow, even the large scale will have. So apart from this side of the lab, what we have, the other side of the lab, we use it for a lot of media preparations and other things. You would have seen a lot of equipments in the college also you would have. So this is my media sterilization room. We have a lot of media sterilizations, like, this is your horizontal autoclave. So we do a lot of sterilization. This is an automatic autoclave where it has been controlled as per GMP compliance equipments. What and all equipments I show you are all GMP compliance equipments. So it has an IQ, OQ, PQ, and DQ, which is required for a good documentation to talk about the equipment. And we have a vertical autoclave, which is also an automatic autoclave where you don't have to stand and do. You can keep your media for sterilization. Once the process starts, you can go and do some other work. So most of the equipments are tri-phase, which has been put on. A lot of investment has gone in to see that the equipments are the best quality, rather than buying something which doesn't have a good quality. Every equipment which you see in the GMP lab or the GMP, this one should qualify for as per 21 CFR Part 111. So that is nothing but Code of Federal Regulations for an documentation for an equipment. So that's my sterilization area where we have different autoclaves of different size. We have a separate autoclave even for discarding, because the same autoclave should not be used for discarding your plates or things. Apart from this is my media preparation come R&D lab, where we have a lot of balances for weighing, your pH meter, your rotavac for a lot of extractions, your small centrifuges, micro centrifuges for small volume fermentations and other things. Then we have a stirring water bath. Then we have incubators here to incubate your bacterial and yeast fluids. So I'll show you a couple of plates also. Then this is our chemical racks, which we have chemicals and medias and other things. And most of the lab requirement for chemicals or media, what we are using here. So we have all the requirements here. This is the R&D cum media preparation lab. And apart from that, I'll take you to another class 10,000 area. First class 10,000 area, which I showed you, is for only for the production people to handle it. Once the sample comes to QC, as per the industrial norms, you need to have a separate QC lab. You should not club it in the same laminar or class 10,000 area to be done. So I'll take it to the QC lab here. I have my colleague, Mr. Abalas, who takes care of my quality control and quality assurance. And we're in this room where we have a couple of equipments. So this is the dynamic pass box where you can keep your media or something which you want to take inside from here and go from the other end and take it, rather than carrying it through your hands and slipping off and falling. So this is your 25, your incubator, BOD incubator. And this is the 37-degree plates. We will show you a couple of plates where we grow a lot of bacteria and other things. How the bacteria look, obviously you need a microscope to see them really visibly. But apart from that, what we do is we grow them. I hope you can see those white colonies We say that these are the useful bacteria which we grow and try to quantify them at what level they are and how pure they are. So these are the probiotics which we work, which are all developed using the strain boost technology, which Sri ma'am has explained about the technology of the new trend. Apart from that, we do both aerobic and this is your anaerobic gas packs where we grow anaerobic lactobacillus also, where under controlled conditions of gas packing. So this is your typical incubator where you can see a lot of practice players have been kept based the kind of work we do, and we try to quantify bacteria which are good or bad. So this is your biosafety level cabinet where you can handle microbes up to biosafety level 2. So where we do a lot of handling and do all microbiology testing in this lab. So right now, one of the testing for total microbial count we are checking here. So where you can see these are all the test tubes checked with the required media for the microbial analysis. So as you see those plates and all which I have shown you, so how do we keep them on a longer run for the bacteria to grow? So I'll just show you how we maintain those bacteria on a longer run. See, most of them has to be kept under glycerol, 20% glycerol. So I'm coming here to the instrumentation room. The instrumentation room, what we have here is, here what you see is an ultra freezer where most of the cultures which we have developed, those important patented strain, these strains has to be kept for a longer run for the use. So we keep them under glycerol. I will just open and show you. This is at -80. You can see the temperature of -80 here. And I will show you how we have an SOP and we every day monitor the temperature of this because this is our critical equipment. There is a -80 here and so these are the cultures which we store here, and I'll just open up this one. See, this is one of the bacteria which we store them on a longer run. So we make them under controlled vials with 20% glycerol. So these are the vials which we have. So we keep them under -80. So each vial, you can see there is a yellow color deposit of the bacteria which is there, labeled with the vial numbers and the strain numbers. So on a longer run, we keep them in the -80. If I have to use that, I'll pick up that vial number from -20. I'll keep them to -80, from -80 to -20, -20 to 4 degree, and 4 degree to room temperature. Once I inoculate inside the flask, I push back to the same -4 to 8 degree, -20, -20 to 8. So we store them on a longer run in this particular equipment. So these are the vials which are used, which are hardly in. We use 100 microliter of vial, which are in that, which are 1 billion to 5 billion cells, which become 400 to 500 billion cells when you run in a fermenter. So these bacteria, once we dry it, because our temperature stable technology, what we have developed, we keep them at, like Shri Madam told you that we keep them at a lot of stability testing. Right now, we have kept a couple of them for stability testing. You can see we have kept them at 40 degree here at the 75% RH. So right now, what forms of powder are there here with us? We keep them under these conditions. You can see those powders which are there, which we have made. These are the probiotics which are there in the form of powder, which we have kept them at stability testing. So we draw it as per the ICH guidelines at the regular interval, as per the zoning of the zone 4 or zone 2, depending on the client requirements. So we keep them and see how much stable they are, unlike other people which store their probiotics in fridge. So this is one equipment, stability chamber, which is used to determine a stability of a sample, like how many years you can give a stability, whether 1 year it is stable or 2 years it is stable. So here we formally name under this equipment, under this packing, we keep it inside this, and we develop stability data and then claim the stability data. Then one more couple of equipments we have here is the spectrophotometer, which is used for determining a lot of sugar analysis and biomass and other analysis. We have a fridge to store a lot of other samples here. So this is our lab which we have here. So most of the lab work, what we do here is most on microbes, and we develop more and more of microbiology work and developing new technologies so that we can cater to a lot of market needs. Like Madam told, these probiotics can venture out into different markets. We have made a lot of prototypes like gummies, chocolates, your muffins, your oral disintegrating films. We have tried to incorporate them into a bakery segment, like into bread and other things also right now with us. So that's it. I've come to a conclusion of this lab visit here. So we can exit out from this place. We have a separate exit out here where we have a crossover bench. We can and a pigeonhole where you can come and change over your this one and remove what you're wearing and can go back to the other office work. And so that's it from my side. I hope anybody has any questions. I'm open to discussion.
Thank you very much about the classrooms at safety levels and how about the culturing of probiotics with teachers. Thank you very much for that. It's now time to conclude, but before concluding, here's an announcement. Whatever you just saw the industrial visit, you need to submit a report to your class teachers by Monday. And the attendance is mandatory for all of you to get the certificate of the webinar.
My dearest students, thank you so much for the support you have extended from morning to evening. You have maintained the pin drop silence. The same support we are expecting for the upcoming days also. Okay. Now I think you can move on. The Monday sessions will be announced later. Monday and Tuesday until afternoon you have eminent speakers talk is there. From afternoon, Monday afternoon, Tuesday afternoon, whoever have registered for poster, be ready. Okay. Wednesday is your food festival. Many students, you have paid for the food festival, you have paid for the seminar, but I think you forgot to register in the link what we have shared with you. Please do so. Thank you.
Your session starts on Monday.